Well, good morning, everybody. All right, let's try that again. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Jeremy.
That's better. I just like to know that you're alive today.
Yes, I am.
And I like to be told good morning also, you know? So glad to see everybody here. Happy for everyone who's here in person and as well as people who are watching online. I want to turn your attention to this at this point in the service to your programs that you should have received when you came in. And inside of that, there's this blue card that says welcome home. And if this is your first time visiting with us at Impact today, we want to say welcome. We're glad you're here, first of all. And if you would be willing to fill out this card with as much information as you are comfortable giving us, and then you turn this card in at the end of the service, we have a gift for you. And we have a goodie bag that we put full of all kinds of good stuff, chocolates, coffees, Chick-fil-A gift cards, all that just for saying thanks for being our guest today. So turn that card in. You turn the blue card in at the blue tent on your way out. There's a blue tent right outside the front doors, and there'll be somebody standing there, one of our VIP people. You hand that to them, okay? If you're watching online, if you could put your name and where you're watching from today. We can't give you a gift through the screen. I'm sorry, we can't do that, but I wish I could, just do that. But hey, be here in person, we'd love to give you a gift, but we're thankful for you watching online today. We know some of you can't be here physically for different reasons today, and we just pray for you that God can bring healing. So anyway, I don't know if you know right now if there is, does anybody know for sure, is there a burn ban going on right now? You know how when it gets really dry out, they say no fires because it's really dry and they don't want it to spread? There might be one because I know we got a little rain this past week, but it's been a really dry summer overall. But when I was a kid, my dad had a church meeting that he was going to go to. He was a pastor, and he had some trash that he wanted me to burn for him. We lived out in the country, and so that was okay to burn trash in the country, right? So we had this spot. We had about an acre of land, and in the very back of the acre is where he wanted me to burn the trash, kind of near the woods. And so he said, listen, it's really windy today, so here's how I want you to burn the trash. He said, because it's windy, I want you to burn one piece of trash until it's completely burnt up, and only then add another piece of trash and burn it till it's completely burnt up. He said, I don't want you building this big old fire and then it blows off and catches the grass on fire, right? And so I did. I listened. I obeyed my dad. I followed his instructions. I burned up one thing till it was all the way burnt up, and only then did I add on. When I was all done with the pile there, I remembered this pile of, we raised rabbits growing up. And a lot of rabbits, and we went through some rabbit feed, and the rabbit feed bag, the food that it came in were like really long, and we had a stack of them in the garage, and I wanted to make my dad proud, like, hey, I even burnt up the rabbit feed bags, right? But they were in the garage, and I thought to myself, I'm a fast runner. I ran track. I was a fast runner. I thought, I know what my dad said, it's windy and don't leave the fire, but I'm really fast, and so I ran as fast as I could, got those rabbit feed bags, brought them back, and in that short time, it couldn't have been more than 20, 30 seconds, some fire had gotten off into the grass and was going towards the woods. And so I ran to the house and I called my older brother. I was like, Barry, fire. And so he goes, Ori, to my younger sister, you call 911. Come on, Jeremy. And we got a couple of buckets, and we would fill them up at the house, and then we'd run about the half acre out to where the grass is on fire and throw water on it. And we were passing each other, right? He would fill up a bucket. He's running past me. I'm going back to fill up my bucket. At one point, the fire had started to lick the leaves of the trees. That's not good. And I could hear Smokey the Bear's voice in my head. Only you can prevent a forest fire. And I'm like, oh, I'm letting down Smokey the Bear. I'm catching the forest on fire. We're literally throwing water into the leaves of the trees to put that fire out. Thankfully, we got the whole fire put out before the fire department got out, which they were slow. I just got to say, they were slow getting there. We put it out. It was okay. But my dad empowered me and to do a job, and I kind of messed up. But, we learned from it. So I want to talk to you today about becoming a church of influence. We've been talking about being a person of influence. I want to talk to you about becoming a church of influence today. And if we're going to be a church of influence, we have to learn to empower others. Empower. What does it mean to empower people? Well, it literally means to give power to someone, right? To give them authority and say, I'm going to let you do this task, right? Let me ask you this question. How many of you have ever been micromanaged in life? You ever been micromanaged by somebody else? It's like they gave you a job, but then they stand over your shoulder and they're telling you how to do it the whole time. They're like, now don't forget to do this, and don't do it that way. Don't do it this way. And sometimes you ever just want to say, like, get off my back. I got this. Like, I got this task. I don't need your help. Thank you very much. Just let me do it. I got it, right? Most people I know don't like being micromanaged. They'd rather be empowered. Right? If we don't empower, here's what's going to happen. We're not going to get people on our team because people don't want to be a team where they're micromanaged, right? They're going to be frustrated. They're going to say, man, this church doesn't give me opportunities. It kind of stifles me. Not only that, but if we don't empower people, we're going to limit the amount of impact we can make on the community. Because one person can only do so much, right? One person can only help so many people. But if we empower others and we turn them loose, now we can help even more people, right? We limit the impact we can make if we don't empower. And so we want to be an empowering church. By the way, this empowerment model, this is something Jesus was doing 2,000 years ago. This is a 2,000-year-old model of how to run things, right? It's called discipleship. You ever heard that phrase? This is really what we're talking about today is discipleship 101. This is the basics of disciples, of how to do discipleship, and yet so few churches actually do this model of empowering others. So how did Jesus do it? Here's how Jesus did it. Here's his model. After a period of time, he had several people following him. He went up on a mountain, he came down, he prayed, and he came down, and he named 12. And he said, you 12, you're going to be my disciples, right? He chose 12. He saw potential in them. And you can read about that in Luke 6, 12 through 13 if you want to look at that up later. But Jesus identified people with potential in them. I read this awesome book. It's called Hero Maker. And I love that concept of we're going to create heroes. We're going to make heroes by discovering their potential in the church. And one phrase he used was, I see in you. It's letters, but it means something. It's looking at someone and saying, hey, I see in you that you're really friendly with people. Maybe you should be on the greeter team, right? Hey, I see in you, you have this connection with kids. Kids seem to really love you. Maybe you should be in the kids ministry team, right? Hey, I see in you. You get the point, right? Naming the potential after you watch people and saying, I see in you. So then he chooses the 12. Jesus then takes the 12 around him to watch him at work. Like, guys, watch me. This is what I want you to do. Observe me. Okay? Then Jesus sends his disciples on a mini mission trip by themselves. And we're going to read about that in Mark chapter 6. So we have some Bibles underneath the chairs in front of you. You can use, they look like this. Or you can use a Bible app if you'd rather follow along on your phone. Whatever you like best, whatever works, we're good with that. But in Mark chapter 6, we read about Jesus sending the disciples out on a mini mission trip. Mark 6, starting in verse 6. And I notice some of you are really good at, I notice what some of you do. You take your program and you see these verses that I'm going to use, and you look them up ahead of time. That's so cool. Keep doing that. That's awesome. I love that. You're like, I'm ready. I've already turned there. All right. Then Jesus went around teaching from village to village. Calling the 12 to him, he began to send them out 2 by 2 and gave them what? Authority over impure spirits. What is empowering? Giving someone power, giving someone authority. These were his instructions. Take nothing for the journey except a staff, no bread, no bag, no money in your belts. Wear sandals, but not an extra shirt. Wherever you enter a house, stay there until you leave that town. And if any place will not welcome you or listen to you, leave that place and shake the dust off your feet as a testimony against them. They went out and preached that people should repent. That means change your ways. If you're sinning, you need to stop. You need to change your ways, repent. They drove out many demons and anointed many sick people with oil and healed them. right? So Jesus sends them out on a mini mission trip. Here's what I want you to do. And by the way, when they came back, they had a debriefing session. Jesus was like, all right, guys, I sent you out on your own. You've come back now. How did that go? Tell me how it went. And they're like, Jesus, it was awesome. Man, we went out and we laid our hands on some people and they were healed. They were actually healed of their sicknesses. And Jesus, it was awesome. We cast out demons in your name and they listened to us and they went away. They're like, even the demons submitted to us in your name. And do you remember what Jesus told them? He said, do not rejoice that the demons submitted to you, but rejoice that your names are written in heaven. Rejoice that your names are written in heaven. And so he has this debriefing. How did it go? Let's talk about it. He had them do something on our own, then let's debrief. Right? And then he goes to make more disciples. Matthew 28, 18 through 20. I'm just going to quote it for you. Before Jesus leaves the earth, he says, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore, I want you disciples to go and make more disciples. Make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I've commanded you. And then he gives this promise, and surely I am with you always, even to the end of the age. So as you do this mission of making disciples, I'm going to be with you. Isn't that good news? Jesus is with us. Anybody thankful for Jesus being with us? All right. And so Jesus then leaves. Here's the crazy part of this next part of how it goes. Jesus then leaves after only being on earth in his ministry for 3.5 years, right? He does his earthly ministry 3.5 years, and then he leaves and says, all right, disciples, it's up to you now. It's in your hands. And think about this. I want you to wrap your mind around this concept. Jesus was the greatest orator, the greatest public speaker this world has ever seen. Do you believe that? I believe Jesus was the best at being a public speaker. He could draw in a crowd, right? And this great speaker, as great as he was, he only does his ministry for 3.5 years and then he leaves. He doesn't sit there and stay and build a mega church and say, let's just build a church as big as I can where I can draw as many crowds to hear me as possible. No, he doesn't do that. Instead, he spends his 3.5 years training these 12 how to do what he does, and then he leaves and puts it in their hands. Think about that. Doesn't start a megachurch. He creates disciples who are then going to take his message out to the rest of the world. And so what we're talking about doing here is working yourself out of a job. Anybody ever heard that phrase? Work yourself out of a job, or maybe you've heard duplicate yourself, right? Duplicate, make a copy of yourself. Teach somebody else how to do what you do. Jesus gave the disciples a job, gave them the authority and the power to do that job, gave them parameters to work within. You know, don't take an extra shirt, but do it this way, and don't do that, but do this. Gave them parameters, and then he turned them loose to do the job. Another pastor actually taught me this. We're going to put on screen. It's a system of teaching people, of giving things over to someone to teach them how to do something new. So first it's I do, and you, my apprentice, watches. You just observe. Then you give them a little bit to do. I do, you help. Then you give them more of it and you say, you do, and I will help. And then finally, you do, and I just watch. Right? That's how you slowly give something over to somebody. There's actually a fifth step of this, which is now that you have learned how to do, you take on a new apprentice and you take them through that same process. Right? And so they learn how to do things for themselves. Some of you may have heard this presentation around Easter time. Me and Andrea like to do this presentation called Resurrection Eggs. Some of you remember the resurrection eggs we did, where you take out an egg and inside you take something out. There's like this little whip thing, and you say, this represents, you're talking to kids, you say, this represents how Jesus was whipped, he was flogged before he was crucified, right? And you take out another egg and you go, oh, there's this thorn in here. And that's because Jesus had a crown of thorns on his head, right? And then like the second to last egg is, oh, there's a cross. And that's because Jesus died on the cross for our sins, right? And then the last egg, spoiler alert, if you've never heard this, spoiler alert, the last egg is empty. And so the kids are watching and you open it up and you go, Oh, the egg is empty. Why do you think it's empty, kids? Because the empty tomb, right? They put him in a tomb, but he's not there anymore. Well, one year, I asked this lady, I had done it for years, but I asked this lady named Edie to do the resurrection eggs. I said, hey, we're doing this Easter party. Will you do the resurrection egg presentation? She had never done it before. I showed her how. She said, yes, I would love to do that. This lady did it better than I could have ever done it myself. I mean, this lady, like, it was personal to her. It was real to her. And she's sharing with the kids, and she's getting teared up and choked up, talking about, and this represents Jesus, how he was whipped for us. And, like, it was so beautiful. It was the most beautiful thing. I said, man, she has done this way better than I could have ever done. I'm so glad I asked somebody else to do this for me instead of just doing it myself. She did a beautiful job. It was awesome. So why don't more people empower others? You can probably make some guesses in your head, what I'm going to say. Why don't more people empower others? Well, number one, if you're taking notes, some people are control freaks. I'm sure nobody in this room is control freaks, but there are. Have you ever met any control freaks out there? Right? They're the ones who are standing over someone's shoulder, gave them a job, but then stand there and tell them exactly how to do it. Like, don't empower them, right? They're control freaks. They just have to have their hands in everything. They're scared to give away something because someone might not do it the way I want it done. Right? They may not do it exactly how I would do it. Oh no, I can't handle that, right? I got to have it done how I would do it. God forbid they take a change and make it their own and turn it into something, do it a different way, right? And so people are like, nope, I can't give it away because I got to control everything. I have a friend named Ryan, and some of you have heard me tell these stories of how I had a fasting buddy. We would go and find these cabins and we would do a time of prayer and fasting together. And Ryan comes in, and we're in this cabin that has this really nice fireplace. And Ryan tells me, hey, Jeremy, I've been given some coaching. I'm getting some coaching from someone. And he says I'm kind of a control freak. And so I'm trying to work on that. And he told me to give someone else a job and then let go of it and don't say anything and just let them do it, right? And so he said, here's what I'm going to do. We have a fireplace. I'm going to start a fire in the fireplace and keep it going for about a couple hours, and then I'm going to give it to you, and I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to let you handle the fire. Okay, that's the plan. And I said, sure, no problem. I can handle fires. Remember my story from earlier? Don't worry, I know how to do fire. No, seriously, I was like, yes, I can keep a fire going in a fireplace. That's easy. So about 2 hours, he does it. And then he gives it, okay, now I'm giving it to you, and I'm going to let go, and I'm not going to say anything, and I'm just going to let you have it. That lasted about 15 minutes. And all of a sudden he jumps in, and he's like, I guess I wasn't keeping the fire as roaring as he wanted it to be. It wasn't as high. And he was like, I'm sorry, Jeremy, I got to step in and do this. And he took it back. I'm like, you failed your assignment, Ryan. Fail. You did not. Go back and tell your coach what you did. So Lifeway Research, they do these surveys, they do these studies, and they came up with, they asked people, why did you stop attending a certain church? So we have reasons up here, some people were just too busy, right? 19%. Burden of family and home responsibilities, 17%. But look at this next category. It's disenchantment with the pastor or the church. And it breaks down into 3 specific reasons. Church members who seem to be hypocritical, turn them away from church. Church members who were judgmental of others. But then I want to highlight this last one. I want to circle it. I want to star it. I want you put an asterisk next to that one in your notes. The church was run by a clique that discouraged involvement. 12%. Here's what happened. In other words, they were a new person. They were trying to find their way into this new church and fit in. They wanted to step up and help and do some things and be part of some committees. And they had some ideas. But what happened is they ran into people who didn't want to hear their new ideas. They had been running the church for so long, this certain group of people, they became protective of it, and they were like, we don't want to give over authority. And so they started shooting down new ideas. How many of you know that when you have a new idea and someone shoots it down, it's very discouraging, right? You had this great idea. Hey, what if we tried this? Hey, what if we did that? Oh, no. And the phrase is always the same. That's not how we do it here. Some of you've heard somebody say this before. That's not how we do it at this church. We don't do it that way, so we can't do your idea, right? That will squash and discourage people, and they will walk on, right? And so can we please just this morning, can we right now decide as a group, we're not going to become that kind of church? Can we decide that as a church? We will allow new people into our groups and new ideas? All right, cool. All right, so number 2, some people don't empower because they want the spotlight all to themselves. Yes. You know any spotlight stealers? Yes. Like, no, keep it on me, over here. I need the spotlight. No, get it off of them, me. Which is the opposite of the Hero Maker book, the whole hero, the one I mentioned earlier. The whole concept of Hero Maker is you make someone else the hero. You shine the spotlight on someone else. That's what Jesus did. That's what we need to be about. And then number 3 is some people just need to be needed. You ever met anybody like that? Don't point at them. Don't point at them. But they just need to be needed, right? They love the feeling that someone else needs me. And so they almost purposely keep the other person spoiled, right? So you got this 30-year-old male who still lives in his parents' home and his mom is still doing his laundry for him, right? Look, I was doing my own laundry since I was 11. Seriously, my parents, I don't know why 11 was the number, but when I turned 11, they were like, all right, you're 11 now, you do your own laundry. And my mom never did my laundry again for me. Now, did I have some pink socks along the way? Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Because when you're learning, you're going to make what? Mistakes. And is that okay? Yeah. Yes, that's okay. We have to be okay with, as people are learning, they make mistakes. You're going to have some pink socks. That's okay. Just learn from it, right? You got to start somewhere. So disciples that make disciples. I want to look at 2 Timothy 2:2. 2 Timothy 2 verse 2. And that's in the back of the Bible. There's a section of all the T's are together. You got 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, you got 1st and 2nd Timothy, and then you got Titus. All the T's are together. So 2 Timothy 2:2, I learned this concept a few years back. I had never heard it before, and it was like a light bulb just went off. Wow! Like I have never seen that. 2 Timothy 2:2. Some people call it the 2-2-2 principle. Why? Because it's 2 Timothy 2-2 principle. All right, Paul, the apostle, is writing a letter to a man named Timothy. That's why it's called 2 Timothy, because it was written to Timothy. And this is what Paul says. And the things you have heard me say in the presence of many witnesses, I want you to entrust to reliable people who will also be qualified to teach others. So watch this. Look at how many generations of disciples there are in this verse. Paul, the apostle, said, and the things you have heard me say, who's he talking to? Timothy. Paul said, the things you have heard me say, the things I taught you, I want you to teach to reliable men who will then teach what group of people? It's open book test. You can look. Who are the reliable men going to teach? Others. Others. How many generations of disciples is that right there? Four generations. Paul taught Timothy, taught reliable men, taught others. The Christian faith is a passing on faith, right? It's a faith that you have and then you pass on to someone else. And it's a generational thing. We can trace generations all the way back to Jesus 2,000 years ago. Jesus had an apprenticing model, right? He made apprentices and then he said, all right, now you take on apprentices. You make more disciples, right? That's what we read in Matthew 28, the Great Commission. Go and make disciples. By the way, I think that's what Jesus had in mind when he said, go and make disciples of all nations. I mean, do you really think Jesus, when he said that to those 12, expected all those 12 to go and make disciples of all nations themselves? Like that those 12 are going to get around to every nation. And actually, it's more than just nation. Because when Jesus said make disciples of all nations, he used a phrase in Greek, ta ethne. He actually said, go and make disciples of all ethnic groups. See where you get ethnic from ethne? I want you to go and make disciples of all ethnic groups, people groups. That raises the bar even higher, because you can go to Papua New Guinea and right within that one country, there's many different languages, right? You got to translate to figure out how to speak just in one country. It's not just country like, oh, we made a church in every country, done, check. No, it's all people groups. That's going to take a lot longer, and it's going to take a lot more than 12 people, right? You see what I'm saying? I think how the world gets reached, make disciples of all ethnic groups, is the 12 taught and made 12 more disciples, which makes how many? Help me out, math people. 24, and then the 24 reached 24 more, and that made 48, and then 48. Okay, it gets too hard after that. But that's how you reach the ends of the earth, is by each one reach one, right? And it just goes on, domino effect. And so whenever we do Bible study, some of you have done the 4-part Bible study with me. If you've ever been interested in like salvation, how do I get saved? If I want to be baptized, right? Some of you have done the 4-week Bible study with me. And those of you who have done that, you know that I almost always have somebody else there with me who's not the student, but someone who is training. Why? Because I'm trying to duplicate myself and create someone else who knows how to do these studies for themselves without me. And guess what? We have people here in this room, right? Raise your hand if you have been trained how to do that study. Yep. You know how to do it all on your own. We did that 4-step process, right? I do, you watch. I do, you help. You do, I help. You do, I watch. And you have it now, totally. And you can do it. And I think that's like the jackpot. That's the coolest thing, is that we have people who know how to do it all on their own. And you can lead people to Christ. Take somebody with you, right? If you go to do a hospital visit, and I'm talking to myself right now, because I'm bad about, if I'm going to see someone in the hospital, it's easier just get in my car and drive and just do it by myself. It's harder for me to think, hey, wait, I need to take somebody else to go do this hospital visit with me, right? But that's what we need to do. It's every person trains someone else in the church. That's the goal. Every person trains someone else in the church. Always two there are, a master and an apprentice. I'm going to give a Star Wars reference. Some of you will get it, some of you won't. That's okay. But in episode 1, Star Wars episode 1, The Phantom Menace, they took out Darth Maul, the enemy. He was the bad guy. And after they killed him, Yoda says to Mace Windu, always two there are, a master and an apprentice. And then Mace Windu goes, but which one was killed, the master or the apprentice? That's what we're talking about. Always two mindset. There always needs to be a master and an apprentice. Take somebody with you. And so, everyone in the church trains someone else how to do what they do. If you're a teacher, if you're a life group leader, there should always be a co-leader of that life group. Always. Right, Emma? Yes, there should always be 2. How about sound booth? Who could you be training to do what you do? Right? Seriously. Look in this room. Who could you be training to do what you do? Worship leader, musicians. Who could you train to do what you do? Teachers, preachers, greeters. Who could you have standing there learning to do what you do? Each one should be teaching one, right? Always 2. It takes time and it takes effort, doesn't it? Those of you who have trained someone else how to do something, it takes time and effort and energy, doesn't it? It does. It's more work to train someone else. It's easier to just do yourself, isn't it? It is. It's harder to train. But I believe it's much more rewarding when you train and teach others and raise others up. So when my son Eric was T-ball age, okay, what is that, about 6 years old, and my niece Ashley was also about the same age. They were on the same T-ball team. And they had never learned how to throw and catch a baseball. Never in their life. And I'm like, all right, guys, we got to practice. And so I'm watching them, and they're just pitiful, right? They're pitiful. But I'm like, all right, guys, here's how you do it. And this is how I taught them. I don't know if this is the right way, but this is how I taught them. I said, whoever's catching, just put your glove up like this, kind of right here by your head, and the other person throws, and when they throw, you just squeeze. When you feel that ball go in there, you squeeze and you catch it, right? And then you take it and you throw it back. So I'm watching them, and they're just failing miserably, right? They're missing, but eventually they start getting a little better. They start getting better at it until finally they are actually throwing and catching back and forth. So now it's game time, all right? Eric is on the pitcher's mound. Ashley is on first base. The batter hits the ball up to Eric, pitcher's mound. He catches it. He turns. He throws it. Ashley sticks her glove up like this. She catches it, squeezes it, and I'm going, out. And I go, yes, they did it. They got the runner out. I was so happy. Guys, in that one moment, I'm telling you, I was so happy. Like that it actually worked, what I taught them, right? It was a proud moment. Well, then I was confused because I was like, why is the runner still on the base? And so I called to the ump. I'm like, ump, why is the runner still on the base? They're out. And he goes, oh, well, in this league, we let every batter get on base and every batter makes a round. And I goes, that defeats the whole purpose of this game. You have ruined this game of baseball. Seriously. Nobody gets out, no outs in this league. I need to put my kids in another league. I'm sorry. But so part of the vision of Impact is to raise up others. To raise up others. And we are willing to take people where they are and work with them. If you've ever wanted to be on stage and like if you have musical ability, we don't have an age limit at Impact Church. Like you don't have to be an adult to be on the praise team. If you have the abilities, now you do have to pass the audition, right? You have to prove you can actually have the skills to do it, but you don't have to be an adult. You could be a teenager up here, right? We are an empowering kind of church. If you've ever wanted to do something and say, man, I wish I could do this in a church, but no one would ever let me, bring it by us, right? Run it by us. And here's part of it, though, is we're not always going to have perfection up here, right? Or perfection wherever. Because part of learning and growing is what? Making mistakes. And we have to be okay with that. You have to be okay with me teaching someone else how to preach a sermon like I'm doing right now, and it may not be perfect. And we just say we're okay with that. Contrast that to some churches, they are only ever going to let the best of the best do anything important, right? Because they have the value of excellence. They've made the value of excellence number one above everything else. We have made developing people a higher priority. We're still going for excellence. We don't want to be shabby. We don't want to be, just shoddy up here. But we have made development a higher priority than excellence. So we're willing to let people make mistakes, right? It's okay. So as we close here, have you been holding back empowering others? Have you been holding back because of insecurity? Because you want the spotlight? Because you are a control freak, right? We all have a little control freak in us, but can we let go of that? Can you put the spotlight on others? And I guarantee you, if you do, you will be glad you did. You will be glad you did. So here's what I want you to write down on the back of this sheet. First of all, 3 questions. Who can you empower and train? Identify who can you empower and train. Who is that person? Number 2, what can you teach them? What can you teach them? Using the 4 steps of I do, you watch, I do, you help, right? What can you teach them using the 4 steps? When will you train them? Write that down. When? Is it going to be this week? Is it by a certain date? Make a deadline. When can you train? So you got that written down? I want us to make these goals for ourselves because, guys, I really want to get there. I want to be an empowering church. Can we all just agree today that we want to be an empowering church? I'm thinking it must be hot in here because y'all are looking sleepy out there. I'm thinking we need to check the air conditioners and make sure the settings are... Whenever it gets hot, that's why some of you know me. Some people walk in and they're like, you feel the temperature is really cold and you're like, Jeremy, this is not Alaska, right? I keep it cold on purpose because I know when it gets warm, people get sleepy. I sense it's a little warm in here, right? We'll get it colder next week. All right. I need to empower somebody to make sure that happens. Right? I'm being serious. I'm dead serious.
I'll make sure it happens.
Thank you, Judy. You got this. I'm going to leave it in your hands. You got it. I'm not taking it back.
You gotta turn it up.
All right. All right. Can we be an empowering church? Can we do this, y'all? Can we be an empowering church? Can we be the kind of church we don't get control freakish on people and like, no, you can't have, this is my territory. No, let them in. Let new people in. Fresh blood, fresh ideas, right? Each one teach one. Let's do this. This is the Jesus way. And if we do this, I promise you, we'll be glad we did. We'll be glad we trained others. And we will make a bigger impact on the community. Amen?
Amen.
All right. So guys, we're going to have a song. We call this our song of decision or invitation. If you have any kind of decision that you need to make during this time, maybe you're sitting here thinking, I like this Jesus guy. I like his ways. And I want to be part of that team. How do I get on his team? Right? I would love to help you figure out those next steps that you need to take. Believing in Jesus, repenting of your sins, being baptized, getting plugged into groups so that you can learn and grow. I would love to help you figure out where you are and what the next step is that you need to take. All right? If you want to be a part of the Empowering Church and you say, you know what, I've got talents and I've got abilities, we would love to have you. Okay? Come see me. Let me know what's the gift, the talent that you have, and how would you like to use it, and we'll get you plugged in. All right? If you need prayer, some of you are going through a tough time right now. You're going through a rough time in life, and you just need someone to pray for you. We would love to pray for you. Come to the back and see me while this song is going on, and we will pray for you. All right? So we're all going to stand, and we're going to sing this song. And if you need to come to the back and see me about anything, please do that now while we sing.